G'day and welcome back for some more Space Engineers. Today I'm going to be taking a look at collisions. Specifically, the kind of collisions that make pistons, rotors, hinges, all these sorts of blocks a lot more scary and a lot more mysterious than they've ever needed to be. And the reason they've always been so mysterious and that people have experienced Clang that they really couldn't understand, to me, a massive part of that has always been that the collision mesh for most blocks is substantially larger than the visual one. So you think, this space looks big enough for this block, but it doesn't fit in. And many of you have seen my little piston creations attached to batteries in the tutorial series, the ones that dance around and go tumbling off into the distance. Well, these are a perfect example of this. They're a perfect example of how the collision mesh is bigger than the visual one. At the moment, this block that I'm about to paint blue is getting pushed out of the way by this armor cube here and the battery because its collision mesh does not fit in that space. Now, I'm going to save this game and I'm going to load it in the current public test version of Space Engineers. And that is what is likely to come in the next update. And here we are. Just look at that little blue block. It's magical. It's not getting pushed or anything. It's right where you think it would be. And even more, and excuse the use of build vision here, it can move. It's awesome. This is the sort of thing that just makes me so happy. I can build so many things that I wasn't able to build before. And one of the first examples I want to show you is loading ramps. This is an example of a loading ramp on a vehicle that I built using the old collision system. It's a bit bulky, there are gaps everywhere, and it just looks a bit awkward, but it works reliably. It does exactly what I want it to do. It's made out of blast door blocks because they have a smaller collision box than the armor blocks around them, so I can get a reasonably tight visual fit. But it's still a bit, you know, it's not great. It could definitely be better. And what I'm about to show you is not perfect, but it does demonstrate what I want it to. This is another ramp made with the new collision meshes. And you can see everything in green is part of the ramp. The ramp is right up against the... Well, I'm stuck. The ramp is right up against the rest of the vehicle's armor. There is no visible gap. This looks perfectly sealed. Now remember, this is not airtight. This will not be airtight. It's a subgrid, so airtightness doesn't work. You need to remember that. But at least it looks it. Which means we can make things that look so much better. And then, still function. Look at that. It's perfect. It sits in so ridiculously neatly. It's beautiful. There are so many possibilities here. So many things that we just didn't dream we would be able to do that are going to be possible. One of the ones that I'm really excited about is building an elevator. And you really couldn't build a single block elevator with pistons unless you put small grid blocks inside a large grid, and it can all get a bit tricky when you do that. But now, we do have sort of an alternative. It's not perfect, but it is a lot better. So if I place a piston in here, place an armor block on top, maybe even another one since I made this taller than I meant to, we now have those blocks attached to a piston. Let's put down a button panel over here, and we can now press reverse on the piston. I might even be able to press it from here. Not quite. There we go. I'm standing on this block, and I should fit right through this one above me. Once I get there. Eventually. Here we go. The moment of truth. Smooth as silk. Check that out. That is something that just was not possible before. It's not perfect though. There are a few things that you might want to do that at the moment still won't work. I personally would want to put a button panel on my elevator, like so. so that I can control it while I'm standing on it. I hit reverse on the piston with that button and hit it. I'm stuck. Unfortunately, the collision box for these button panels is still too big to fit. If I get rid of it, everything just works. It's unfortunate the button doesn't work, but we do still have some other good options, like graded catwalk ends, which have been working for me quite nicely, actually. Slipping up through there. It's a reasonably close approximation to a safety car. If we combine the catwalk end with some sliding doors, we can hop onto the elevator, make it look fairly safe, and with a wall all against that surface, when we reverse the piston, it moves nicely. We've got boundaries all around. It feels like it could be a real-world elevator, almost. Then we come off. That's quite cool. And yeah, still not as good as having a button on there, which would be great, but definitely a big leap in the right direction for us being able to play around with subgrids the way we want. Now, it's really important to note, this is not something that gets rid of Clang. It's not even really something that changes Clang in any meaningful way. What it changes is how we interact with it. Because we now see what things actually are in the physics engine, in more cases than we used to, the chances of us running into things and doing things the wrong way are substantially reduced from what they used to be. If I drop this off, you'll see that it'll kind of spin, like, oh no, its counterpart stopped. So there's still some phantom forces being generated there, but it is so much less energetic than it was before. And that's a good thing. Can make it as energetic as it was before though. If I do something like this. Oh yeah, see that? That is some high energy. That piston has pushed that all the way through that block. And if I pull it back now, it's going to do the same. So we could still create our clanging, our jumping, our things like that. It's just going to be easier to avoid. And now we come to one creepy smiley face that demonstrates something very interesting. If you ever wanted to create a block-shaped mural of something, but you wanted to be able to have angled pieces of different colors sitting right next to each other, you can now. This is actually a collection of blue blocks on pistons pushing through a wall that is made of the yellow blocks. So these corner pieces are separate grids. If we wanted to do that before, you'd sort of have to emboss it out by placing the corner blocks out here, which may not have looked quite as good as you wanted it to. The other thing that this highlights is how easy it would be to create a false wall. If you pushed a block into the wall of a corridor and you wanted it to pop out so that you had a secret corridor, or if you wanted to have a turret hidden behind it, you could do that as a sneaky way to take a few pot shots at people unexpectedly visiting. Don't know how well that'd actually work in PvP, but it could be exciting for NPC builds. One last thing to mention is that there is a behavior that is in the current build of the game and has been in it for a long time, which is when two grids are very close to each other, they will merge upon pasting. This block up here that's attached to the end of the piston is a separate grid to this blue block next to it. When I copy this and then paste it, they become one. As you can see here, the block edges have gone. That means those two cubes are now part of the same grid. This is going to be a much more likely occurrence now that we can put things right next to each other. It wasn't as likely with the old systems, but now that we can use armor blocks for doors and ramps and things like that, I think it could be more common. So it's worthwhile if you're someone who likes publishing things to the workshop to copy and paste in creative mode your build before you publish it to ensure that none of these unexpected merges have happened. And if they have, try moving your door to the open or closed or halfway between position when you're taking your blueprint, and then publish it in that state so that people aren't constantly going, your doors don't work, your ramp doesn't work, all these sorts of things. And so that you get to show off your build in the state that you wanted to show it off in. Even with that being said, I am super excited to see what people come up with, especially given what I've seen over on the Space Engineers subreddit, because there have been some incredibly cool contraptions built and shown off just in this public test. And I am very much looking forward to taking advantage of this in all of my series, especially Survival Impossible, which will be delayed this week because I want to wait till this update's out before I do my recording. I don't want to go playing around with pistons and rotors until I've got my grubby little fingers on it. I want to be able to use these things to my advantage. And so I'll likely delay Survival Impossible till Monday evening, so that's 2 days after it normally comes out. So there's all that, and plenty more to come, and hopefully a whole lot less Clang, and I will see you then.